Okay, I apologize for being late, but had some technical difficulties. My computer uh, died on me last night, so I'm going to have to make do with what we have. There we go. That's about as good as I can get it. Yeah, and I realize that's too close here. All right. Let's see. This one is. I won't be able to use the board too much tonight, so I apologize. But I'm gonna have to use the simply the my telephone to broadcast tonight, and that's because I just don't have a computer that's working. So we'll get started here in just a moment. All right. If you had a chance to look at the quiz, I have finished everything. I think we have the answers, and we'll go through these here in just a moment. Okay. Turn in your Bibles, if you would, to the book of 1 Samuel, and we're going to continue out where we were last night, and we'll pick up where we were. We did chapter 10 last night. Tonight we're going to go through and see how much we can get to. We'll start in chapter 11 tonight. But first, let's do our quiz from last night. Now, there are 5 questions. And it says, what did Samuel use to anoint Saul captain? Well, the answer is, of course, oil. If you go to chapter 10, and then Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it upon his head. The whole point is I want you to remember that Samuel was anointed by Saul. So Saul was anointed by Samuel, and he was anointed with oil, which is common. I'll remind you of that. It's important later on. What did Samuel use to anoint him? To anoint Saul, it was oil. 2, Samuel told Saul that he would meet 2 men at what grave? Now, of course, the King James Version says sepulcher, and it was Rachel's, and that's in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 2. When thou art departed from me today, then thou shalt find 2 men by Rachel's sepulcher. Okay. Number 3, Samuel told Saul at Mount Tabor he would meet men with goats, bread, and this wine, and in particular 3 goats, 3 loaves of bread. You'll go to Mount Tabor, I said Mount Tabor. That's an error. I'll change that. Plain of Tabor, and there you would find 3 men going up to Bethel. One carrying 3 kids, another carrying 3 loaves, and another carrying a bottle of wine. So yeah, that is an error in that, but it's not Mount Tabor. It's a plain of Tabor. Now the Spirit of the Lord calls Saul to do this. Number 4, the Spirit of the Lord calls Saul to do this. The answer is to prophesy. It caused him to prophesy. That is in verse number 6. The Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy unto them. And then it says in verse 10, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. Verse number 5, in what city did Samuel call the people to choose Saul? Remember, Saul was anointed to be the next king. Samuel, the priest or prophet, got the people together, and they gathered at the city of Mizpah. And if you'll look at that, Samuel called the people together at Mizpah. That's in chapter 10, verse 17. Now, for extra credit, here is the by the way, when I put extra credit, that means it's a little harder. What city was Saul from? First, you recognize that he was of the tribe of Benjamin, a Benjamite, but he's from Gibeah, Gibeah. Now, that's very important for what we are about to learn that was ongoing beforehand. Remember, there were some things that we need to recognize was ongoing in Gibeah beforehand. I hope that you will remember those. All right, so those are the answers. Those are from rudyredband.com. If you've had an opportunity to look at those. We're going to pick up where we were last evening and go into chapter 11. Let me pull this up here tonight. So Saul has now been elected king. Saul is the king. The people have said that famous line. What was it? God save the king. Remember? God save the king. now we go further and we see some of the escapades of Saul. All this was a kind of unique event. But I love to go back last evening and remind you, when Saul was chosen, what was he what was the description of the man? It says that Saul was a man who was head and shoulders above the rest, goodly to look to, pleasant to the eye. He looked the part. Whoa, what a great man. And everybody saw him, and they saw a man who was, yeah, that could be our king. We could follow him. Look how he looks. He's a great man of God. And that's the way I've always pictured Saul. All right, so tonight we'll continue further. Again, for those of you joining, I unplugged something over there anyway, the wrong one, and my computer is dead. So I am waiting for it to charge up. Once it's, maybe when we're halfway through it, I have enough charge, I can use my other computer here because my camera still works pretty well. So we may try that a little bit later on, okay? So let's go into chapter 11. Again, we're talking about Saul. Samuel anointed him. He is the next king. He is, excuse me, not next king. He is the king to succeed whom? He succeeds God being the king. That's an odd thing. You know, God is king, and now we have Saul, who's the next king. Samuel anoints him. I get those confused, Samuel and Saul. Samuel is the prophet. Saul, and it's just, they're just similar words. Saul is next king, head and shoulders above the rest. It never says a thing about his spirituality. The only thing you find is when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him and he prophesies. That's the biggest thing you'll find about the spirituality of Saul. And in fact, I think it's really interesting that when they went to find Saul, God had to show them where he was. He's hiding among the stuff or equipment in some of the versions, it says. He just was reluctant. So the Bible says that Saul went also, Samuel told the people the matter of the kingdom. He wrote it in the book. Samuel sent all the people away. Saul also went home to, verse 26, Gibeah, right? And there were with him band of men. Or these are valiant men, warriors. But there was also some children who despised him and didn't like the fact. They didn't like him, but he held his peace. Now, chapter 11, I think, is a unique chapter. It's probably the only time you see Saul is in a really good light. So in 1 Samuel chapter 11, we see Saul in a very good light here. Things are going really good for Saul. It's really profitable here. I hate to see afterwards because we bash him so many times. You know, you've read the rest of the story. You know how it is. Well, the Bible says then Nahash, the Ammonite, came up and he camped against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. I wanted to get this in line so you'll see the answer here. So Jabesh Gilead, there's an Ammonite that surrounds the city and says, we won't kill you if you'll just pay us, or we're going to bully you, but you better do what we ask you to do, and we'll let you live, and we'll be okay to you. And that was a problem. That was a problem. Then Nahash, the Ammonite. Got my other pen here. Nahash, the Ammonite, came against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said, Nahash, make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, on this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes, and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers into all the coast of Israel. And then if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. It's kind of like an ultimatum. You know what's said here? It said here, look, the Nahash comes, this guy surrounds the people, and all the men come out and says, Nahash, hey, make a covenant. We'll serve you. Don't hurt us. So the city is encamped round about, and they got it encompassed, all the Ammonites that came with Nahash. And the men of the city sends word out, hey, Nahash, look, just make a covenant with us. We'll serve you. We're okay. Nahash says, okay, I'll make a covenant with you, but all of you thrust out your right eye, job it out, and destroy it. Now, you know, with only one eye, it makes you a poor warrior. I will make a covenant with you that you thrust out your right eye and lay it for a reproach on all Israel. Bring a reproach, right? It makes Israel look as though they couldn't help them any, okay? That was the reasoning behind this. It's a terrible thing. I mean, they're bullies. Bullies have been bullies, have been bullies, have been bullies ever since. That's just the way people are. Listen as he says this. And the elders of Jabesh said, give us 7 days of respite. And we're going to go to all Israel. You said it'd be a reproach to Israel. A reproach upon all Israel. In other words, if we put out all your eyes, that means Israel won't help you, and you are a sorry set of people. And we know the Philistines were against them. We of course know this already, right? But have we not seen this already? With the Philistines, they come in and they fought against them. But now we got the Ammonites. Well, what are they going to do? Well, they send out messengers throughout Israel saying, will anybody come and help Jabesh Gilead? Then came messengers to Gibeah of Saul. 1 Samuel 11, verse 4. And told the tidings in the ears of the people. And all the people lifted up their voices and wept. Right? So all the people at Gibeah, and everybody's just upset. Can't believe this is happening. What are we going to do? Oh, this is awful. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field. And Saul said, what aileth the people that they weep? Have you noticed Saul so far? Where's he at? Does he have a palace? Does he have a kingdom so far? You know, a kingdom was people follow you, right? He doesn't have a kingdom. He's at his house. He's with the herd in the field. Here's the king, guys. He's over everybody. He is that kind of a man. And guess what? When trouble comes, hey, what's wrong with the people? What aileth them? Why are they weeping? What aileth the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul. That's one of the most odd things. Because later you find that an evil spirit from God comes upon Saul. I find it ironic that it goes like that. It's just odd. Well, when he heard these tidings, the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard these tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen and hewed them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coasts of Israel by the hands of the messengers, saying, whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. One consent. Now, this is one of those you got to dig back in your progressive analytical minds and see if we can find out exactly what was happening, okay? What was actually going on here? Does anybody know? Have you figured this one out yet? Has anybody figured this out? Do you really know what's happening? What did he just do? He took an oxen, he cut it up, and he sent it to all the tribes. You know what he's really doing? I'll tell you what he's doing, brothers and sisters. Saul's from Gibeah. What happened to the men of Gibeah? The evil men. There was a woman that was taken and cut up and sent to all the tribes. I'm sure that story has lingered on. Remember the Levite and his concubine in Judges chapter 19 and 20? And do you remember what happened? He cut that woman up in chapter 20 and sent her body to all the tribes. Say, come and see this. In similar fashion, Saul does something similar to this. And Saul says it in this manner. He says, he took a yoke of oxen, hewed them in pieces, sent them throughout the coast. And what did he say? If you don't send, if you don't come, if you don't help fight this battle, this is what's going to happen to your oxen. Okay? It will happen to your oxen. So they better get out and they better go, right? 7%. We're just about there. So he says here, and they came out with one consent. In other words, it draw the people together. Just cutting up those two oxen, the yoke of oxen, he cuts them up and he sends them to all the people. You come out, you better fight. All your oxen will be just like these. So they come out with one consent. And when he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. So 300,000, Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that came, thus shall ye say unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow, by the time the sun be hot, ye shall have help. And the messengers came and showed it to the men of Jabesh, and they were glad. You know, it's one thing to live in an ungodly time, and you just don't know that anybody's going to show up and help you when you're in trouble. But this time, they do come. And it was so good. He said, go tell them that this time, and they said unto the messengers, you go tell tomorrow about the sun that gets hot at the noonday, you'll have some help. And they were so glad to know that somebody was going to help them. You see, they were going to make a covenant with these people and just serve them. Now, if Nahash the Ammonite was a smart man, he would have said, okay, y'all serve me. But he wants to to ridicule all of Israel, putting out their eyes. Nobody's going to come and help you guys. And that's what caused the problem. All right. Verse number 10. The men of Jabesh said, tomorrow we will come out unto you, and you shall do with us all that seemeth good to you. Now, I want to read that again, exactly what happened here. Therefore, the men of Jabesh, tomorrow we will come out. You shall do with us all that seemeth good. And it was so on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the host in the morning watch, and slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. In other words, when you talk about a scattering, that's a pretty big scattering, you know? That's a pretty big scattering. So Saul comes up. By the way, this is really a great victory, right? It is a great victory. Huge victory in the sight of the people. I mean, Saul comes up. He's the man. The people are doing well. Wonderful things happen. And the Ammonites, they just scatter. They all scatter. Wow. Let's look at it again. They scatter, not one left another. And the people said unto Samuel, who is he that said, shall Saul bring them in that we may put them to death? This is just crazy. These are the kind of people you're dealing with. So what happens? There's a great universal victory. And it's not just a victory for Jabesh Gilead, but for all the people. Saul got everybody together. He did this on his own. He set the oxen, everybody. You come up, we'll kill all your oxen. You're going to come, and we're going to fight together. So you united the people together. They fought the battle. They all won. And guess what happens next? Saul looks like he's a very great king. And all his supporters are saying, who is it that said Saul wasn't no good king? Wasn't going to be their king? They need to be put to death. Now, of course, we read that at the end of chapter 10. They were what they call sons of Belial. And that's also what the Bible talked about, the sons of Eli. if you look at that, the children of Belial, children of Belial, in verse 27, you will notice in chapter 8 that it talks about, not chapter 8, I apologize. It was chapter 3. Yes, because it took them together. Chapter 2, verse 12. Now the sons of Eli were the sons of Belial. Just as in the chapters previous, it says that these men that said this, but the verse 27 of chapter 10, children of Belial. How shall this man save us? And they despised him, brought him no presents. He held his peace. Saul didn't say anything. Now they're saying, who said Saul can't reign over us? Bring them in that we may put them to death. Because Saul has just proven himself a very good king. He did a marvelous job in what he did. Well, and the people said unto Samuel, who is this? Who are these? And Saul said, verse 13, there shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Who did he say? Look how he says it. For the Lord hath wrought salvation. No, the Lord hath wrought salvation. Saul understands this. And how can a man that has this kind of insight be so gullible? You know, I think often, because I look at the early life of Saul, and I look at the early escapades and the workings of Saul. I mean, he says everything right. He united the people. When he united them, where was he? He was out in the field taking care of herds. He was doing what you would normally see a man do. And yet, what happens? You saw what happened, didn't you? You saw exactly what happened. It was troublesome. It was troublesome. All right. So now Saul says nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to be harmed. Nothing will happen. No way. Because God gave us a victory today, and nobody's going to die on a day like today. What a wonderful man. What a wonderful thought, you know? We see the zeal of Saul. We see the integrity of Saul. We see the godliness of Saul. We've seen how the Spirit of the Lord came upon him and he prophesied. Now the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him, and what does he do? What it says. When he heard these tidings, his anger was kindled. God stirred within him when he saw the people being done wrong. Well, the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Then said Samuel to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. Now remember Gilgal, as I said last evening, that's the first place when they went into the promised land. It's the first place they landed, right? In Gilgal. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king. They made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. And there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. If you want to read something good about Saul, you've got to get chapter 11. Chapter 11 is just a wonderful depiction of a man in the center of God's will. Okay? All right, now we're going to chapter 12. What I'm going to try to do is something unique here. I'm going to try to transfer over this to my other computer. Now, how well this is going to work, I don't know. I'll have to change this because it really is hard to see with this. And let's see if I can get into the studio here. And here's the studio. There we go. I got